The message came on a Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth flickered at the same moment. Televisions, phones, computers, and even old radios crackled with the same voice. It spoke in perfect English, though no human had ever heard anything like it before. People of Earth, we are the Velthari Dominion. We have watched your species for 300 of your years. We have studied your wars, your weapons, and your nature. You are violent. You are dangerous. You spread like a disease across your planet. Now you reach for the stars. This cannot be allowed. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the United Nations Command Center in Geneva. She watched the message play on the massive screen along with 200 other military leaders and politicians from every nation. Her hands were steady, but her heart beat fast. The alien voice continued. In 7 of your days, our fleet will arrive at your world. You have 2 choices. Surrender your planet and accept Dominion rule. Your people will live, but under our control. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your ships will be dismantled. Your species will never leave this system again. The room was silent. Chen could hear her own breathing. Or you may choose to fight. We have conquered 412 species across this galaxy. Not one has survived resistance. The choice is yours. We will accept your answer when we arrive. The screens went dark. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then everyone started talking at once. The next 6 days were chaos. Some countries wanted to surrender. They said it was the only way to survive. Others wanted to fight. They said freedom was worth any price. Old enemies argued. Old friends disagreed. The world seemed ready to tear itself apart before the aliens even arrived. Admiral Chen spent those days in meeting after meeting. She listened to scientists explain what little they knew about the Velthari. She studied the brief glimpse of their ships that satellites had captured. They were massive. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth had built. On the 5th day, the world leaders voted. The count was close, but the decision was made. Earth would not surrender. Chen was given command of the United Human Fleet. It was a strange thing to say. Just months ago, nations had pointed nuclear weapons at each other. Now, they were combining every ship, every weapon, and every soldier under one command. The American carriers joined with Chinese submarines. Russian fighter jets flew alongside Japanese pilots. Old hatreds were pushed aside. There was no time for them anymore. The admiral stood on the bridge of the flagship, the UES Unity. It had been a Chinese aircraft carrier 2 weeks ago. Now it bore the flag of Earth. Around her, officers from 12 different nations worked together. They spoke different languages, but they understood each other. Fear and determination needed no translation. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Park, her Korean tactical officer, "the Velthari fleet has entered the solar system. They will reach Earth orbit in 18 hours. Chen nodded. She had expected this. The aliens were punctual. "How many ships?" she asked. Park's face went pale. "Our sensors count over 2,000 vessels, Admiral. The largest is nearly 50 kilometers long, 2,000 ships. Earth's combined fleet numbered just over 300 vessels. Most of them were small. Most of them had never been designed for space combat." Chen looked around the bridge. She saw fear in the eyes of her crew. She understood it. She felt it too. But she also saw something else. She saw determination. She saw anger. These people had not chosen surrender. "Send a message to the Velthari fleet," she said. Her voice was calm and clear. "Tell them we have made our decision. Earth does not surrender. Not today. Not ever. If they want our world, they will have to take it from us." The message was sent. For several hours, there was no response. Then the alien voice returned. It sounded almost amused. "You choose death. So be it. We expected nothing less from a violent species. Know that when your cities burn and your people scream, you brought this upon yourselves." Chen smiled grimly. "Let them come." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to all Earth forces. Every ship, every base, every soldier." The officer nodded. "Channel open, Admiral." Chen took a deep breath. She thought about her daughter back on Earth. She thought about the billions of people looking up at the sky, waiting and hoping. She thought about all the generations of humans who had fought and struggled and survived against impossible odds. This is Admiral Chen to all forces. In a few hours, we will face the greatest enemy humanity has ever known. They have conquered hundreds of worlds. They think we will be easy. They think we will break. She paused. The bridge was silent. They are wrong. They have never faced a species like us. They have never seen what humans can do when we fight for our home. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but stone tools. They crossed oceans in wooden ships. They went to the moon with computers weaker than your phone. Every time the universe tried to kill us, we adapted. We survived. We grew stronger. Her voice rose. The Velthari think we are primitive. They think our ships are weak. Maybe they are right. But they do not understand what drives us. They do not understand that we would rather die free than live as slaves. Today, we show them what humanity really is. Across the fleet, across the planet, people listened. Soldiers checked their weapons. Pilots climbed into their fighters. Civilians hugged their families and prayed. Everyone knew what was coming. Everyone knew the odds, but nobody surrendered. The first Velthari ships appeared in Earth orbit as the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls shimmered with strange energy. Their weapons glowed with power humanity could not understand. Admiral Chen watched them approach on her screen. Her finger hovered over the command that would begin the battle. All ships, she said quietly. Weapons free. The sky lit up with fire. The war for Earth had begun. The first battle lasted 47 minutes. It was a massacre. Human missiles streaked toward the Velthari fleet. They carried nuclear warheads powerful enough to destroy cities. They exploded against alien shields like fireworks against a stone wall. Not a single Velthari ship was damaged. Then the aliens fired back. Admiral Chen watched in horror as beams of blue light cut through her fleet. Human ships exploded into clouds of metal and fire. 60 vessels were destroyed in the first minute, 80 more in the second. Pilots screamed over the radio as their fighters melted around them. "Pull back," Chen ordered. "All ships, retreat to the far side of the moon." The surviving ships fled. Less than half of the fleet made it. Behind them, the Velthari moved toward Earth without hurry. They did not chase. They did not need to. They knew the humans had nowhere to go. Chen sat in her command chair and stared at the casualty reports. Thousands dead, hundreds of ships lost. Their best weapons had done nothing. The war was less than an hour old, and humanity was already losing. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Park. His voice was shaking. "What do we do?" Chen did not answer immediately. She was thinking. The Velthari were stronger. Their shields blocked everything. Their weapons cut through human armor like paper. A straight fight was suicide. But humans had never been good at straight fights. That was not how they had conquered their planet. "Get me the science team," Chen said. "All of them. And contact the resistance networks on Earth. We need to change our strategy." On the planet below, the Velthari began their conquest. They landed troops in every major city. Their soldiers were tall and gray, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like pale stars. They moved through the streets like ghosts, their weapons humming with deadly energy. But they did not find the empty surrender they expected. In New York, a Velthari patrol walked down Fifth Avenue. The streets were empty. The buildings were silent. The aliens thought the humans had fled in fear. Then the first explosion hit. A car parked on the corner erupted into flames. The blast killed 3 Velthari soldiers. Before the others could react, gunfire erupted from the windows above. Human fighters had hidden in the buildings. They fired rifles, threw grenades, and then disappeared into the subway tunnels before the aliens could respond. This scene repeated itself across the world. In Tokyo, resistance fighters collapsed a building onto a Velthari command post. In London, hackers disabled alien communications for 6 precious hours. In Mumbai, civilians armed with nothing but knives and courage attacked a patrol and managed to kill 2 soldiers before being cut down. The Velthari were confused. Every other species they had conquered had given up after the first defeat. They had accepted their fate. They had bowed down. These humans would not stop fighting. "They are like insects," the Velthari commander told his superiors. "We kill 1,000, and 1,000 more appear. They hide in holes. They attack at night. They use primitive weapons that should not work. Yet our soldiers die." The Dominion High Council was not pleased. This conquest should have been easy. Instead, it was becoming expensive. Every day, more Velthari soldiers died. The humans learned their patterns and exploited them. They were unpredictable. They were relentless. Admiral Chen watched the resistance reports from her hidden base on the moon. She was proud of her people, but she knew it was not enough. The Velthari controlled the skies. Their ships could destroy any city that caused too much trouble. The resistance bought time. But time for what? The answer came from Dr. Elena Vasquez, a physicist from Argentina. She had been studying the debris from destroyed Velthari ships. Her team had found something. Their shields are powerful, Vasquez explained to Chen. But they operate on a specific frequency. Our weapons cannot penetrate because they are too slow. The shields adapt faster than our missiles can hit. So what do? Chen asked. Vasquez smiled. It was the first smile Chen had seen in weeks. We do not try to overpower them. We trick them. Look at this. She showed Chen a diagram. The shields expect energy attacks. They expect speed, but they do not expect mass. If we hit them with something large enough and slow enough, the shields will not recognize it as a threat until it is too late. Chen stared at the diagram. You want to throw rocks at them? Not rocks. Asteroids. We have been mining the asteroid belt for 20 years. We know how to move those rocks. If we can guide them toward the Velthari ships, the shields will not stop them. It was insane. It was primitive. It was exactly the kind of plan humans would come up with. Chen approved it immediately. The operation took 3 weeks to prepare. During that time, the resistance on Earth continued to bleed the Velthari. Every day brought new attacks. Every night brought new heroes. The aliens grew frustrated. They began to burn cities as punishment. Millions died, but humanity did not break. On the day of the operation, 12 mining ships flew out to the asteroid belt. They were slow and unarmed. The Velthari ignored them. What threat could mining ships pose? The miners attached engines to a dozen asteroids. Each rock was the size of a small mountain. They pointed them toward the Velthari fleet and fired the engines. The asteroids began to move. Slowly at first, then faster. They would take hours to reach their targets. But they were coming. The Velthari detected them too late. Their sensors had been watching for missiles, for ships, for energy weapons. They had not been watching for rocks moving at a fraction of light speed. The first asteroid hit a Velthari battleship directly. The shields flickered, confused, trying to adapt. But the rock was too big and too fast. It punched through the shield and struck the hull. The explosion lit up the sky above Earth. The massive alien ship broke apart into 1,000,000 burning pieces. For the first time since the invasion began, a Velthari warship had been destroyed. Admiral Chen watched from the moon base. Around her, officers cheered. Some cried. They had proven it was possible. The enemy could be hurt. 5 more asteroids hit their targets. 5 more Velthari ships died. It was not a victory. The Dominion still had nearly 2,000 vessels. But it was a message. Humanity was still fighting. Humanity was learning. And humanity would never give up. The Velthari commander stared at the wreckage of his ships. For the first time in his long career, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. These humans were not like the others. They did not accept defeat. They did not surrender when they should have. They fought with rocks and tricks and pure, stubborn will. They were unpredictable. They were dangerous. He sent a message to the High Council. We may need more ships. The war was just beginning. 3 months had passed since the invasion began. Earth was bleeding, but it was still breathing. The Velthari controlled most major cities now. Their troops patrolled the streets during the day, but at night, the shadows belonged to humans. Resistance fighters struck and vanished like smoke. They had learned to move through the old subway systems, through forgotten tunnels, through the dark places the aliens did not know existed. Admiral Chen had moved her headquarters to an underground bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains. It had been built decades ago to survive nuclear war. Now it survived something far worse. On her desk sat a piece of alien metal. It had been pulled from a crashed Velthari scout ship 2 weeks ago. The pilot had died on impact. The technology had not. Dr. Vasquez and her team had been studying every piece of alien equipment they could find. At first, they understood nothing. The technology was too advanced. It was like giving a computer to a caveman. But humans were fast learners. We cracked it, Vasquez said, bursting into Chen's office without knocking. Her eyes were wild with excitement. Their communication system. We understand how it works. Chen looked up from her reports. Explain. Vasquez spread her notes across the desk. The Velthari use quantum signals. That is why we could not intercept them before. But their encryption is actually simpler than we expected. They never bothered to make it complex because no species they conquered ever got this far. Can we listen to them? Better than that. Vasquez grinned. We can talk to them. We can send false messages. We can make them see ships that do not exist. We can tell their fleet that reinforcements are needed in places where there are no enemies. Chen felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. How long until this is ready? It already works. We tested it this morning. We sent a false distress signal from one of their ships. 3 vessels went to investigate. Our asteroid teams destroyed 2 of them before they realized the trap. The game had changed. Humanity was no longer just throwing rocks. They were getting clever. Over the next few weeks, the human resistance launched a new kind of war. They used stolen communications to turn the Velthari against themselves. False orders sent patrols into ambushes. Fake reports made commanders doubt their own soldiers. The aliens began to suspect traitors in their ranks. On Earth, the tide was shifting. In Berlin, resistance fighters captured a Velthari weapons depot. They spent 3 days learning how the alien guns worked. By the end of the week, human soldiers were fighting with Velthari weapons. In Moscow, a team of engineers built the first human shield generator. It was ugly and unreliable. It broke down every few hours. But when it worked, it could stop alien fire. For the first time, humans had real protection. The Velthari High Council watched these developments with growing concern. They had sent 50,000 soldiers to Earth. They should have been more than enough. Against any other species, they would have been. But every day, more soldiers died. Human attacks grew bolder and more effective. The conquest that should have taken weeks had dragged on for months. Resources were being wasted. The other Dominion worlds were starting to ask questions. The Council made a decision. They sent the Extinction Fleet. 20 massive warships entered the solar system. Each one was armed with planet-killing weapons. They had been used 3 times before in Dominion history. Each time, they had left nothing but ash and silence behind. Admiral Chen received the warning from her observation posts on Mars. When she saw the data, her blood went cold. They are going to burn Earth, she said quietly. If they cannot conquer us, they will destroy us. Lieutenant Park looked at the screen. How long do we have? 72 hours. 72 hours to save a planet. 72 hours to stop a fleet that could turn worlds into cinders. It seemed impossible. Chen gathered her commanders. They came from every corner of the Earth. Russian generals sat beside American colonels. Chinese admirals worked with Japanese captains. The old divisions meant nothing now. They were all human. That was all that mattered. We have 3 days, Chen told them. We cannot outrun those ships. We cannot hide from them. Our only choice is to stop them before they reach firing range. General Morrison, an old British soldier with scars across his face, spoke up. Our fleet is down to 90 ships. Most of them are damaged. How do we stop 20 planet killers? We don't stop all of them, Chen said. We stop the flagship. The Extinction Fleet operates on centralized command. If we destroy the command ship, the others will lose coordination. They will be vulnerable for a few precious hours. And how do we destroy the flagship? Our weapons barely scratch their shields. Chen looked at Vasquez. The scientist nodded. We have been working on something, Vasquez said. When we studied their shields, we found a weakness. The shield generators are located in the center of each ship. If we can get a bomb inside their shields, we can destroy the generator. Without shields, they are vulnerable. Inside their shields, Morrison repeated. That means getting past their defenses. That means getting someone on board. Yes, the room was silent. Everyone knew what this meant. It was a suicide mission. Chen looked at the faces around her. She saw fear. She saw doubt. But she also saw determination. These were the people who had refused to surrender. These were the people who had fought for 3 months against impossible odds. They would not stop now. I will lead the mission myself, Chen said. The room erupted in protests. She was too important. The fleet needed her. Earth needed her. Chen raised her hand for silence. Earth needs to survive. Nothing else matters. I have been a soldier for 30 years. This is what I was trained for. This is what I was born for. She looked at Park. You will command the fleet in my absence. When the flagship falls, attack with everything we have. Do not hold back. Do not hesitate. Give them everything. Park saluted. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. Yes, Admiral. The mission team was assembled within hours. 50 volunteers from 12 nations. They were pilots, soldiers, engineers, and scientists. They knew they were probably going to die. They volunteered anyway. As Chen boarded the shuttle that would take her to the extinction fleet, she looked back at Earth one last time. The planet hung in space, blue and beautiful and wounded. Smoke rose from burning cities, but lights still shone through the darkness. People were still alive. People were still fighting. "We are coming," Chen whispered. "Hold on just a little longer." The shuttle's engines fired. The mission to save Earth had begun. The shuttle drifted through space like a piece of debris. Admiral Chen had ordered all power shut down except for life support. The Veltari sensors were looking for engines and weapons. They were not looking for a dead ship floating among the wreckage of earlier battles. Inside the shuttle, 50 soldiers waited in darkness. They breathed slowly to conserve oxygen. They had been drifting for 18 hours. The extinction fleet was now visible through the small windows. 20 massive ships glowed with terrible power. Chen looked at the flagship. It was the largest vessel she had ever seen. It was shaped like a blade, 20 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Its hull was covered with weapons that could burn continents. At its center, protected by layer after layer of shields and armor, was the bridge where the fleet commander sat. That was their target. "Approaching optimal distance," whispered Sergeant Williams, the American explosives expert. He had been building bombs for 20 years. Now he carried the most important bomb in human history. It was small enough to fit in a backpack but powerful enough to destroy a shield generator. "Prepare the breach pods," Chen ordered. The shuttle carried 10 small capsules. Each one held 5 soldiers. They would launch toward the flagship, pierce the hull, and fight their way to the shield generator. It was a simple plan. Simple plans were best when everything was about to go wrong. The pods launched in silence. Chen felt the sudden acceleration push her against her seat. Through the tiny window, she watched the flagship grow larger and larger. Then the alarm started. The Velthari had detected them. Not the pods themselves, but the tiny heat signatures of human bodies. Beams of blue light filled the space around them. One pod exploded, then another. Chen heard screams over the radio before the signals went dead. "Brace for impact," she shouted. Her pod hit the flagship's hull with a crash that shook her bones. The cutting torch activated automatically, burning through alien metal. Within seconds, they were inside. 6 pods made it. 30 soldiers out of 50. It would have to be enough. Chen pulled herself through the breach hole and into a corridor lit with pale green light. The air tasted strange, like copper and ozone. Gravity was different here, lighter than Earth. The Velthari homeworld must have been smaller. "Move fast," Chen ordered over the radio. "They know we are here." The teams spread out through the ship. Their mission was simple: cause chaos, draw attention, and give Chen's team a path to the shield generator. They attacked everything they found. They shot at control panels, threw grenades into machinery rooms, and killed every Velthari soldier they met. The aliens were not ready for close combat. Their weapons were designed for space battles, for burning planets from orbit. They had never expected enemies to get this close. They had never imagined anyone would be crazy enough to board their flagship. Chen's team moved through the ship like ghosts. They had memorized the layout from captured data. Left turn, then right, then down 2 levels. Every step brought them closer to the center. They met resistance at the 3rd checkpoint. A squad of Velthari soldiers blocked the corridor, their weapons charged with deadly light. "Cover!" Chen shouted. Her team dove behind metal pillars as blue beams filled the air. Private Jackson went down with a hole burned through his chest. Corporal Zhang was hit in the arm, but kept fighting. They returned fire with captured alien weapons, killing 3 Velthari before the others retreated. "Keep moving," Chen ordered. They could not stop. They could not mourn. Not yet. Outside the flagship, the human fleet was fighting for its life. Lieutenant Park had brought every surviving ship into battle. 90 vessels against 20 planet killers. The odds were hopeless, but they fought anyway. The Velthari fleet was distracted by the chaos on their flagship. Their formations broke as ships tried to assist. Park exploited every opening. His ships darted in, fired everything they had, and retreated before the enemy could respond. "Admiral," Park said into the radio, knowing Chen probably could not hear him. "We are buying you time. Please hurry." Inside the flagship, Chen's team reached the shield generator chamber. It was a massive room filled with glowing machinery. Energy pulsed through conduits the size of subway tunnels. At the center stood the generator itself, a sphere of swirling light that hurt to look at directly. Sergeant Williams pulled the bomb from his backpack. His hands were steady even though his heart raced. "I need 3 minutes to arm this." "You have 2, Chen said. "We have company." Velthari soldiers poured through every entrance. There must have been 100 of them. Maybe more. They had finally realized what the humans were trying to do. Chen's team took cover behind the machinery. There were only 12 of them left. 12 humans against 100 aliens, fighting to save a planet. They fought like demons. Chen had never fired a weapon so fast in her life. She killed 10 Velthari in the first minute. Around her, her soldiers did the same. They used every trick they knew. They threw grenades, set traps, and fought with knives when their guns ran dry. The aliens fell, but they kept coming. More humans fell too. Private Santos was torn apart by concentrated fire. Lieutenant Kim died holding a doorway against 20 enemies. "Bomb is armed," Williams shouted. 60 seconds. Chen looked around. 4 of her soldiers were still alive. The Velthari were closing in from every direction. "Go," she ordered. "Get to the breach pods. Get out of here. Admiral, we cannot leave you." "That is an order." Chen grabbed a fallen alien weapon and turned to face the enemy. "Tell Park to fire everything when the shields fall. Tell Earth we did our job." Her soldiers hesitated for 1 second. Then they ran. Chen did not watch them go. Her eyes were fixed on the approaching enemy. She thought of her daughter. She thought of her home. She thought of the billions of people counting on this moment. The bomb counted down. 30 seconds. 20. 10. The Velthari commander appeared at the far end of the chamber. He was taller than the others, his armor decorated with marks of rank. He saw the bomb and understood. He raised his weapon at Chen. "You cannot stop us," he said. "Even if this ship falls, we will destroy your world." Chen smiled. Blood dripped from a wound on her forehead, but her eyes were clear and bright. "You still do not understand us," she said. "We were never trying to stop you. We were trying to show you." "Show us what?" "That every time you knock us down, we get back up. That we will never stop fighting. That even if you kill every last human, you will remember us forever. You will remember that we hurt you. You will remember that we made you bleed." The bomb reached 0. The explosion filled the chamber with white light. The shield generator shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. The flagship's shields flickered and died. Outside, Lieutenant Park saw the shields fall. His voice boomed across the human fleet. "All ships, fire everything. Now." 90 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Missiles, railguns, nuclear warheads, and captured alien technology all struck the flagship together. Without shields, the great vessel had no defense. Explosions ripped through its hull from bow to stern. The flagship of the extinction fleet broke apart in the cold void of space. As it died, its final transmission reached the other Velthari ships. The commander's last words were a warning. "These humans, they are not like the others. They are." The transmission ended in static. The destruction of the flagship changed everything. The 19 remaining ships of the extinction fleet fell into chaos. Without their commander, without their communications, they fought without coordination. Some tried to retreat, others tried to carry out their original mission. They crashed into each other. They fired on empty space. They were powerful, but they were lost. Lieutenant Park did not give them time to recover. The human fleet attacked with everything they had left. They had lost half their ships in the battle, but the survivors fought with the fury of people who had watched their friends die. They swarmed the confused Velthari vessels. They found the gaps in their armor. They hit them again and again until they burned. Across the solar system, reinforcement ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt joined the fight. Mining vessels that had been retrofitted with weapons emerged from the dark. Even civilian shuttles joined in, ramming alien fighters to protect military ships. One by one, the planet killers fell. The last Velthari ship tried to flee toward the edge of the solar system. It almost made it. But a small team of pilots, flying damaged fighters that should have been in scrapyards, caught up with it. They flew directly into its engine ports and detonated their fuel cells. The ship exploded. The extinction fleet was no more. On Earth, People emerged from their shelters and looked up at the sky. They saw the flashes of distant explosions. They did not know what was happening, but they hoped. They prayed. They waited. The news came 3 hours later. Lieutenant Park's voice crackled over every radio on the planet. People of Earth, the extinction fleet has been destroyed. Admiral Chen gave her life to make this possible. Because of her sacrifice, because of the sacrifice of thousands of brave soldiers, our planet survives. The war is not over, but today, we have won. The world erupted in joy. People cried in the streets. Strangers hugged each other. Church bells rang in cities that had not heard them for months. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity felt hope, but Park was right. The war was not over. The Velthari still controlled large parts of Earth. Their soldiers still patrolled the occupied cities. And somewhere out in the galaxy, the Dominion High Council was learning what had happened to their fleet. The next 6 months were brutal. Human forces fought to reclaim every city, every town, every piece of ground the aliens had taken. The resistance that had been fighting in shadows emerged into the light. Former enemies worked together. Nations that had argued for centuries found common cause. The battles were bloody. The Velthari fought hard, knowing that defeat meant death. They destroyed infrastructure as they retreated. They burned crops and poisoned water supplies. They made humanity pay for every inch of ground. But humans kept coming. They always kept coming. The last Velthari stronghold fell on a cold morning in February. It was a fortress in the mountains of China that the aliens had held for 7 months. The human army that surrounded it included soldiers from every nation on Earth. They spoke 50 different languages, but they all knew the same words when the fortress gates finally opened. Victory. The surviving Velthari soldiers surrendered. There were less than 3,000 of them left out of the 50,000 who had invaded. They were prisoners now, but they were treated with more mercy than they had shown. Humans could be cruel, but they could also be kind, even to their enemies. Lieutenant Park, now Admiral Park, stood on the steps of the United Nations building in Geneva. The city was rebuilding. Cranes filled the skyline. The streets were full of people working, talking, living. Today, Park said to the crowd gathered before him, we remember those who gave everything so that we could stand here. Admiral Sarah Chen, Private Santos, Lieutenant Kim, and thousands more whose names we will never forget. They died so that Earth could live. He paused. His eyes were wet, but his voice was strong. The Dominion will come again. We know this. They have conquered 400 worlds. They will not accept this defeat. But when they return, they will find us ready. They will find us stronger. They will find a species that learned from this war and grew because of it. He looked up at the sky, at the stars that hid unknown dangers and unknown possibilities. We are building new ships, better ships. We are learning to use alien technology. We are preparing for the day when we will take this fight to them, because that is what humans do. We do not wait for our enemies to attack. We do not hide and hope for peace. We stand up, we fight back, and we win. The crowd cheered. The sound rolled through the city like thunder. Far across the galaxy, the Velthari High Council received the final reports from Earth. They read about the destruction of the extinction fleet. They read about the loss of their invasion force. They read about the stubborn, violent, impossible species that had refused to surrender. The eldest council member, a being who had lived for 1,000 years and seen 100 conquests, spoke the words that would echo through Dominion history. Remove Earth from our conquest lists. Do not send more ships. Do not send more soldiers. These humans are not worth the cost. Let them have their small world. Let them celebrate their small victory. They are contained. They are primitive. They will never be a threat to the Dominion. He was wrong. 20 years later, the first human warship left the solar system. It was called the Chen, named after the admiral who had saved Earth. It was faster than any Velthari vessel. It was armed with weapons that combined human creativity and alien technology. It carried a crew of humans who had grown up knowing their species could survive anything. Behind it came 100 more ships, then 1,000. The human fleet grew year after year, reaching out into the galaxy that had tried to destroy them. The conquered species of the Dominion heard stories about Earth. They heard about the humans who had said no. They heard about the war that should have been impossible. They began to hope. They began to resist. One by one, worlds started fighting back. The dominion that had ruled for 10,000 years began to crack. The humans were not just warriors. They were an example. They showed the galaxy that the Velthari could be beaten. They showed that freedom was worth any price. And when human ships finally reached the Velthari homeworld, the rulers of the Dominion looked out at the fleet that filled their sky and remembered the words of their commander. The last words he ever spoke: "These humans are not like the others." They had finally understood. But it was too late. The humans had come, and they had brought the war with them. Admiral Sarah Chen had been right all along. Humanity would never surrender. Not today, not ever. And any species foolish enough to threaten Earth would learn this lesson the hard way, because that was what humans did. They survived, they fought, they won, and they never, ever gave up.